John, is it fair to assess what Bob Coomber and Gary Hague are trying to do as clearing up a mess?
Actually, I think that's a really reasonable assumption. I think the position we're in with the budget now is that there is a budget deficit next year of seven and a bit million pounds, and they have to find the necessary savings to bridge that gap. My problem actually is that they're looking for these savings in the wrong places. They're going back to some of their favourite options for cuts. So it's cuts to the library service of another £80,000. It's further cuts to the youth service. It's cutting £400,000 from the discretionary schools transport budget. That is taking our kids to schools. And actually there's not a huge amount of detail on the proposals as far as we've seen them. So we don't know which children are going to be affected by that. And there are some of the questions that we're going to be asking. There are other cuts that I find really difficult to justify, and in some ways I'm really nervous of. So for instance, at a time when we've had all the difficulties over baby P and Haringey, we're suggesting in child social care that we should be employing non-qualified people rather than fully qualified social workers, and I think that that may have some implications that we will come to regret. So I would ask that they think again about that. I think the second aspect is that I think everybody knows that in the years to come, we're going to have real-time cuts in funding to local government. We're fortunate that we've been in a position since '97 where we've had real-term increases every year, and in fact this year there's an increase of about £1.7 million in government funding. I think those authorities that have been run better than Thurrock in the past are able to use next year's budget to try and cushion themselves against the worst excesses of what may be to follow. Thurrock don't have that luxury. Thurrock have to find real cuts with nothing to cushion them for the future, and that again is really worrying.
But how would you answer the defence that there may be 20 jobs lost here in Thurrock, but in other boroughs, there may well be 80 to 100, 120.
Well, Thurrock is a very small authority. Thurrock has a population of 140,000. It's one of the smallest unitaries in the country, so I think if you compare like to like, the 20 or so that we may be looking at is probably pro rata about the same as those areas. And I think the question that we have to answer is, if we didn't make these cuts, what cuts would we be making? And I say that we should be looking first of all at the Vertex contract. Thurrock Council pays Vertex, its strategic partner, £18 million a year for the provision of services. On top of that £18 million, since 2005, we have paid Vertex an additional £13 million for services over and above the baseline of the contract. That's a huge amount of money, and I'm really not convinced that we're getting best value for that contract. It's not a contract that we would have entered into, and it really needs straightening out. The other one that I return to time and again is just the sheer number of consultants that this authority employs. It is far beyond what is reasonable. You'll always have a need for certain consultants to do specific jobs. We seem to have, in some areas, more consultants than full-time staff, and you just can't carry on like that without hemorrhaging money, and that's what this authority has been doing for so long, for too long.
But they might say it's almost chicken and the egg. Once they've got re-established themselves as a credible authority, that the CPA has improved. Once they've done that, then maybe permanent staff will come.
Michael, I really hope so. I live here, my family live here. I want Thurrock to be a really good go-ahead authority that's delivering for the people of the borough. And I hope that some of the steps that we are now taking, working together, are beginning to bear fruit. So I really hope you're right.
But is this a case that any leader of a Labour group in opposition all over the country, even if you're right, you're wrong, because people will be very critical of Gordon
I understand that criticism, and what I say is that those who are elected to Westminster have a job to do in Westminster. Those of us who are elected to serve on Thurrock Council or whatever the local authority is have our job to do here. I can't influence what happens at Westminster. I can only influence what happens here on Thurrock Council. That's the job I'm elected to do, and that's the job that I'm going to continue doing.
So what do you think the message should be? There is a list of individuals who are going to be losing their jobs. What do you think the message, to some of these people, it must become as a great shock? Would they have been losing their jobs under a Labour administration?
I would like
They
to think
wouldn't
be losing the jobs under Labour administration. We would not have been entering into the kind of strategic partnership deal that the Conservatives did with Vertex. We would not have been spending that £18 million a year on these services. We'd not be hemorrhaging a further £13 million over that period on add-ons and additions to that contract. And I will just point out that in all the years of compulsory competitive tendering, all the tough years when we had our budgets cut in real terms year in, year out, this authority under Labour did not make a single compulsory redundancy.
28th, you've got this period between now and full council on December the 8th. What's Labour's role in that period of 6 weeks?
The budget document that we received yesterday is 100 pages long. There are lots and lots of questions that we need to be asking on the proposals for savings. We will be using the scrutiny process to ask those questions. We'll be using the scrutiny process to see if we can tease out better ways of saving this money. And then when it comes to the council meeting, when the decision on these cuts will be made, we will be there standing up for the people of the borough, standing up for the vulnerable and refusing to accept the worst excesses of this administration.